Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, episode number 98. And it's May the 12th, 2023. Hope everybody had a good week. We just got back from the Shoppers Drug Mart. We got our sixth COVID shot. Yes, we got a thing the other day saying that it's time for another booster. So we got our booster. Walter says he's feeling funny.
That could be because I got up early.
Not making me laugh. Oh, yeah. Walter had to get up early because he made our appointments for 9:30 and 10:30, and so he took me over at 9:30. But he got in at the same time, so yeah, that was a good thing. Okay, so showing you things first. Not really. If you were on sewing with Stephanie and Stephen the other day, you know how proud I was that I got Stephanie's All Stars quilt all done. After I'd already put it together and realized I should have put sashing into it, and I had ripped all that out, well, got it all together, laid it out on the floor, took a picture of it, it's all ready to put it on Lucy, and then somebody, and it wasn't Walter this time, but he didn't look at it for very long. He only looked at it for 5 seconds. If he'd had 10 more seconds, he would have caught the mistake. The stars, there are 10 different stars, right? So 20 blocks. You have 2 of the same star. In my case, I have 2 of the same star. Some people might have made all those stars a little different with the fabric. But anyways, when I got it all together, I didn't realize in the bottom row are 2 of the same stars side by side to each other. Well, I thought, well, I'm not ripping that out. Anyways, who cares? Well, yeah, did the same thing in the top row too. 2 stars side by side. So I am renaming Stephanie's pattern now because I'm not ripping all that stuff out. Because essentially, to get those, what are you looking at?
See if you had it hanging up.
No, I don't. I'm going to show it on. I'll show it on next week. I'll probably show it on the live on Sunday. Because I forgot to take a picture of it. But anyways, it's fine. I'm going to rename it. Stephanie called it All Stars Quilt. I'm going to call it Coupling Among the Stars. I have 2 up here and I have 2 down there. So yeah, it's all in the name. It's all in the name. And that's what I've been working on, that and been fighting with trying to figure out how I'm going to make a quilt for my sister-in-law, given her specifications. Well, I'm not. I finally decided I can't handle that. I have some other ideas that I think will work fine, and I wrote to her this morning, and she agreed with me because she's too busy to even consider the things that I've giving her because she's a school teacher, and it's the last little bit of school, and so things are really busy right now. So it works out for both of us, which is a good thing. Walter has expressed a desire to possibly try foundation paper piecing.
Maybe.
You'd probably be brilliant at it. It's not that hard.
Oh, no. Take a break from doing shirts and stuff.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you should be making shorts.
Yeah, I should be making shorts.
Yeah, you should be making shorts right now so that in 2 weeks' time I'll have shorts when we go to the East Coast. Yeah. But whatever. So that's what he's been up to around thinking about doing nothing. Whatever. He's been busy with yard work. Sort of. Because the weather here's been kind of nice. So, at that point in time, I don't pave it. That's my solution to it. Always has been. Pave it. You want color? Paint it. Paint it and pave it. Okay, some announcements. As always, sewing with Stephanie and Stephen this coming Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. if you care to join us. Zoom link is in the show notes below. I've decided, okay, we're going to the East Coast the 1st of June. Well, guess what? We will be in the East Coast when the monthly Craft and Chat happens. In other words, Craft and Chat is not going to happen in June. Not only that, but there'll be one sewing with Stephanie and Stephen actually on the same day that Craft and Chat would have been on, first Wednesday of June, will not happen either because Stephanie's going to Halifax as well. So I thought, well, to make it up to you, I'm going to have a pop-up sew day. I'm thinking I'm going to have a pop-up sew day, and that will be next Saturday, May the 20th, starting at 8 a.m. But you can come anytime you want. Now, I have put the Zoom link in the show notes below in this today, and it'll also be in the other shows I do next week, and I'll send out probably beginning of next week or something. I'll send out to those on the mailing list all the information as well. I'm saying maybe. Okay, because it's a pop-up sew day, and you know what, I with pop-up sew days, it depends on other factors. But right now I'm thinking, yeah, it's probably going to happen. And May the 20th. Thought about having it on May the 27th, but we're going to a thing on May the 27th. Walter's sewing group are having a sew day kind of a thing. So going off to that. So yeah, so watch for announcements coming. Okay, and speaking of other events, Halifax meet and greet. For those of you that are going to Halifax, I think I've heard from everybody now that's interested in the meet and greet that are going to Halifax. I've already sent you out an email. We found a hotel very close to the convention center with looks like a very nice bar area. I wrote to them and told them we could have about 17 people. Can you accommodate? I didn't really want to make a formal reservation because, you know, people's plans might change, and I didn't want this place necessarily quartering off a whole area for us, and like there's four of us, kind of a deal. That would probably piss them off. Um, but I did write to them to let them know and see what they advise, and they just said it's on a first come first serve basis to show up. So that's what we're doing. We're playing it by ear. So I have no idea what the seating is going to be like. However, we will be there the night before because we're staying one night at this particular hotel because we changed our itinerary slightly and couldn't get a reservation for the place we're actually staying in while we're in Halifax for an extra night. So we're going to be staying there, and we'll probably go down in the bar area and case it out, see, you know, whatever. But anyways, if you'd already said you were going and you're interested in the meet and greet, you already have all this information. I have given it to you. Send it out to you. Okay. What? Oh yeah. The two out of the three presentations we had during the last weekend's retreat are now posted on my YouTube channel. The one done by Russ and the one done by Sean. Many of you have voiced a concern that I have not posted Stephanie's. That's Stephanie's choice. Stephanie didn't want to be recorded, and I respect that. And I know how many of you might be disappointed at that because everybody loves Stephanie. And it was a very good presentation. But she maybe will do something like that on her own channel sometime in the future. I don't know. It was Stephanie's choice for that. And I actually know the reasons behind it, but I'm not going to share them here with you because if Stephanie wants to share it, she can. Yeah, well, it's not that deep and dark. It actually makes good sense what she's doing. But I mean, that's for Stephanie to say if she wishes to. But anyways, the other two are up there. And people, I have said this before, and it kind of leads into today's many topics. It's very nice that you've enjoyed those presentations and you wanted to write nice comments to Russ and to Sean. And guess what? Russ and Sean will probably never see those comments because it's on my channel. So you're writing these comments like you're directly addressing Sean or Russ. Well, unless they come and actually go to my video of their interview, they're never going to see that comment at all. So my suggestion would be if you feel very strongly that you want to pass on a nice comment to them, go to their channels and write a comment there for them about it. Now, down the road, Russ may be reposting this video when it comes up with something he's going to be doing, he said, and I don't know what Sean's going to do with it either, if he's going to post it. But you see, they're not going to see it. I see it because I get a notification that someone's written a comment on there because that's how the YouTube channel is set up, but they won't. I mean, I will pass on the general information. Like I'll say, you know, oh yeah, there's been a lot of people have seen your presentation and really love it, but I'm not going to act as a go-between. Okay. I'm not going to like collect all of these and then send them to them in an email. Nope. Life's too precious for those kind of things. So I have told people about this before, but some people still don't get it. Just a thought. Okay. And just another thought. Most of you probably saw my vlog on Monday, where I basically went on a rant about the people who were no-shows. And you might think I'm very cruel and heartless, and that's your choice, not my problem if you think that. Okay? But No, I'm sorry. They're not off the hook. They're blacklisted. End of discussion. So be it. And I explained myself in that blog, I think, very well as to why I do that kind of thing. You may just think you're just a nasty bastard. And you might not be wrong. Okay, so speaking of complaints, today we're going to talk about our pet peeves. So this is the all rant episode. Some of these things we've talked about before, some we haven't. Now, I want to say right off the beginning, we are not picking on anybody in particular. This is just stuff we have observed or experienced over time. And I have a funny feeling that many of you will be able to relate to many of these things. But anyways, let's get started in on this. First one's right close to my heart right now. People who want quilts but don't know anything about quilting. Okay, these are the people. Well, first of all, a quilter doesn't ask another quilter for a quilt for obvious reasons. We make them. So sometimes people, friends, relatives, they've seen some of your quilts and they'll say, "Oh, I'd really like something like that too." And being nice people that we are as quilters, we say, "Sure, I'd love to make you a quilt. What colors are you looking at?" They never know.
Or they have ones that you don't think would necessarily make a good quilt.
Because they're looking at the quilt not as a quilt. They're looking at the quilt as a piece of home decor. And let me explain what I mean by that. You're decorating your bedroom. You've repainted the walls. You've done new accessories and things. You have a color scheme and a style in mind. And then you decide, I should have a quilt for my bed. So you're trying to match what you did with the walls and everything like that.
Trying to match the drapes, trying to
match the carpeting. There's a little bit of this color in this. I want it all to pull together. I want it all, to come together as a whole. Most times that's not going to happen unless you're making the quilt for yourself. Then you know what you want.
Yeah, not only that, you have the ability to take a sample of your carpeting and take a sample of your drapes and actually try and match them, which is always impossible, but
yeah. See, there's a way, there's two schools of thought here about quilting. One, quilting is a piece of home decor. Two, quilting is an art form. And I subscribe to the second one, not to the first one.
Not only that, like I've never really been to a person that really super tries to match things up or something like that. Because first of all, it's difficult to get an exact match to, let's say, drapes or something like that. And the other thing is, it I think you should pick something that looks nice. That it doesn't what do you call it?
Doesn't clash maybe
clash,
with everything.
Like you wouldn't necessarily put in a burgundy room. You wouldn't necessarily put like a bright pink and yellow something else that sticks out that you couldn't stand, but something that sort of goes with the style of the room.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you know the person well, if you have been to their home many times and you know exactly what their style is, yes. I did a quilt for a friend of mine back a few years ago when I first got into quilting. He asked if he wanted to commission me to make a quilt. He wanted to throw it over his couch in his house. I said, I know the perfect thing for you, because I knew what his style was. So I didn't have to ask him anything about colors. I didn't have to ask him about style. He likes vintage. He likes browns and beiges and dark colors and things like that. Something that's very Victorian in style, because he collects Victorian antiques as well. So I knew exactly what to create for him. But I've known this person for a long time. So that was easy. But somebody else who says, well, like the example with my sister-in-law, she talked about colors. Well, she wanted something. Her description was she wanted something with a very subtle pattern, almost no pattern at all. She wanted a gray and a very light-ish bluey tinge gray, steel gray. I don't know what you call it. I looked around their house. I'd only been in their house that one time, and she wanted very. I think she wanted very modern, and that's fine. This is her style, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the problem: trying to figure out what she'd like. And she's in BC. I'm out here. So you know what happens when you send pictures of fabrics or potentials, the color gets shifted as well. And it's not the same as seeing it in person. You know, ideally, if you're going to make a quilt for somebody, if somebody wants you to make them a quilt and they're not a quilter, you need to take them shopping. You need to have them come along with some pictures of the room they're going to put it in, some pictures of what they already have on the walls, their decor.
Yeah, and part of the problem too is that they don't really understand that you need different color values and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or you need contrast in the quilt for like a pattern to show up in it.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't seem to understand that.
So basically, you need to spend time educating the person about the principles and properties of quilting. And that may not be, you may not have the time for that or the patience. They may not have the time for that or the patience. They just want something to put on their bed that looks nice with the rest of the decor. In that case, Walmart, get a blanket or something like that, because the quilting is not for them. So for me, that's why I had to write to my sister-in-law and explain to her, and she seemed to understand that. It's not because I don't want to make her a quilt. It's because I want to make her a quilt that she's going to love. But I gotta love doing it too. If it's a chore, it's just going to be hanging over my head forever. And now I just feel like a great weight is off my shoulders, because now I can do what I want to do, keeping in mind what I already know about the style she likes, and hopefully I will hit something that will make both of us happy. We'll see. But that's the problem with a lot of people. They think, oh, it'd be very nice to have a quilt. That's very trendy. But they don't understand the principle behind quilting. It's an art.
No, yeah, they'll look at let's say a sample quilt, and the sample quilt might have bright colors or colors in it that they don't like, and they have a hard time envisioning what it might look like with different colors in it, right? Like just because you see a picture of a quilt that has bright colors in it doesn't mean that you can't customize it to make it in the colors you want.
And that seems to where there's a barrier for non-quilters. They think because you see it, there's the picture of it. Actually, it happens to some quilters too, especially new quilters who will walk into a quilt store and they'll see some on display, some of the quilts that classes are coming up, and they want exactly what's there. They can't use their brain, they can't use their imagination to envision it in other fabrics.
We've seen it where people will go to take a class and then they'll see the sample quilt and then go into the store and say, well, what colors are in that quilt? Yeah. And it happens to be the quilt's been made a little while ago, and the fabrics that have been used in that quilt are no longer available. Then they get all in a twist because they don't know what to pick for colors.
And then they get a little, and this is especially with brand new quilters, people who think they might like to learn how to quilt, that can be the stumbling block to whether or not they are going to learn how to quilt, because they get frustrated. Because, well, I don't know, what if I pick the wrong colors? Well, can you pick the wrong colors? You know, your gut, we're coming to this actually, but you know, your gut will say whether or not a couple of colors really belong with each other or not. They will. We'll say more about that in a minute though, because that's one of our pet peeves. But I equate someone who says they'd love to have a quilt, who are not a quilter, and they're thinking of it as home decor, like someone who buys art for their walls.
That's like a lot of people buy art for their walls to go with the
furniture,
which is actually kind of wrong to do that.
That's absolutely wrong. You ask any artist, you do not pick your art to go with your furniture at all. That's why there's those starving artists out there, you know, come to the art show at the Holiday Inn this weekend, big prize. unbelievable deals. It's an art extravaganza all the time. Yeah, no, that's not art. That's home decor. That's home decor. I mean, go to Home Sense if that's what you're looking for. Go to Home Sense and buy yourself a quilt for that matter, because it's the same diff. So, anyways, that Walter kind of started talking about this. It's the matchy-matchy people. Okay, I recently just went through the hell of matchy-matchy with my sister. My sister got all brand new. She redid her living room, dining room, got all brand new furniture, and it's gorgeous furniture. I love the colors in it, and I love the covering and the whole bed. It looks great. And I made the mistake of offering to make her a new table runner. I thought she kind of asked me, but
No.
Walter says it was me, and Walter's never wrong. That's why I always say I stand to be corrected. So whatever way, it was the table runner from hell when it came to trying to find fabric to go with.
Yeah, like he'd pick
furniture.
out fabric and go over to see her, and she'd look at the fabric and go, no, doesn't match. Doesn't it? She'd had it laid on top of her chair, and she's going, no, doesn't exactly match my chair.
She wanted matchy-matchy. The only way she was going to get an exact matchy-matchy is if we could have got our hands on the upholstery fabric that was used in the chair. And in some cases you can, but that's not the thing. We did finally make one that picked up some of the colors in it.
Yeah, and we actually did find fabric that was almost close to the fabric that was in the chair. But there you go. But the table, the chairs were sort of a blue gray, and with a slight green in it. And if you choose any blue gray with a slight green and put it in a table runner that's 20 feet away from the chair,
no one's going to notice.
Nobody's going to notice.
Yeah.
But somehow in their head, they have to have exactly the same shade.
And we all know these kind of people. They're the matchy-matchy people. Everything has to be perfectly matched.
I was in a class, a beginner sewing class, and we were making a table runner. And one of the ladies there, she dragged in her curtains from her dining room because she was looking for an exact match for her table runner with the curtains. And I looked at her and I said, she was getting really upset because she couldn't find exactly the right shade of fabric. And I said, and even the instructor said, it really doesn't matter that much. If it's reasonably close, you'll, the table runner's not right next to the curtains. Nobody's going to notice.
Does do the drapes match the rug, carpet? That's a joke in there. And some of you may get it, some of you won't, and I'm not going to explain it. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, this matchy-matchy thing. Now, that's not to be confused. I am not a matchy-matchy person, but coordinated.
Yeah.
That's a little different from matchy-matchy. Coordinated is like, okay, you've picked up, say you have a dominant color in decor in your room. And so you want to pick up that color maybe in much smaller quantities throughout the room, in the accessories, in the furnishings, whatever, here and there. But it may not be exactly the same, but it coordinates. It doesn't stand out like a sore thumb as being something completely out there. But at the same time, well, I'm sure everybody's been to somebody's house where everything is matchy-matchy. You go in and you look, oh my God, the table runner and the cushions on the couch and the easy chair in the corner are all
actually the same. I had that argument with my sister a long time ago. She bought a new house, so she painted the walls medium gray. She had medium gray carpeting. She bought a plain couch that was medium gray. And I said to her, you really want to pick everything that's exactly the same color? Wouldn't it be a good idea just to get a different color couch so that you could at least see the couch to sit on it?
Made it look very spacious because everything was camouflaged. So
when she got that all done, she got her couch moved into this place with the gray carpeting that matched the couch. She looked at it and just, no, I don't like that. So she got rid of the couch. She sold it. She gave it to my other sister, and ended up buying a green couch or something like that instead, just to contrast with it.
Yeah, because you do need contrast in things. Now, there are those who love the tone on tone look of things, you know. Great if you're trying to hide.
Yeah, I'd get a light gray carpeting with a dark gray couch or something like
Yeah,
that. That's still at least a contrast.
yeah, some contrast to that. But matchy-matchy, no. If you looked in our house, we are not matchy-matchy, but we're coordinated in certain rooms. So it's not like it's just a whole bunch of wild things thrown together either. But I always go back and I think about what I was told one time when I tried to be matchy-matchy. When we bought new furniture upstairs for our family room, I saw I don't know if it was that or not. There's some tables, something to do with woodwork, anyways. And when we are picking out something, and I said, "Ooh, that color of the wood though, in that won't go with what I already have." And the lady in the store, and maybe this was a sales pitch, but it did make sense to me at the time and still does. She says, trying to match wood, she says, "Have you ever walked through a forest? Do the trees all match? They're all wood, but they're all different, and it just seems to work, doesn't it?" And I always think of that and go, yeah, you're right. It does. Wood is wood. Sure, it's different colors, different shades, but for the most part, unless your wood is so drastically, like, way different in color, it does. And if
Yeah,
nature
like
can
if
get
you
away
have
with it,
a dark wood couch and you get another dark wood, which is a little bit different shade, does it really make that much
it's still wood.
difference?
You don't hear the woods complaining about the color thing. And, nature's never wrong when it comes to colors. So use nature as your place to as your teacher, I guess, as your teacher. Okay, so that's stuff about decor. Actually, another thing that we get asked a lot, and I got someone wrote me a comment just this week, want to know how I pick the colors for my quilts. Well, we have delved into this before. This is the one thing that really kills some people from quilting or whatever. They get lost in how to pick colors and they think there's a magic formula. And there are lots of big name quilters out there that have whole episodes on using the color wheel and making that sound like it is the ideal formula. The color wheel is only a suggestion. The color wheel is actually artificial if you think about it. When the color wheel was designed, it was designed by somebody observing nature, a rainbow. The colors in a rainbow are always in the same order and they always go together. Why? Because of the spectrums of light, of visible light. And when the spectrum of visible light is broken down, that's what it ends up. That's a rainbow. It's the refraction of sunlight through water droplets in the atmosphere that causes the light to refract and create those colors that we can see. So a whole bunch of other colors we can't see as well. Like some animals can see many more colors than we can as human beings. But people think that there's a formula for this. So they go to these classes, and I've done it. I've watched stuff on YouTube about using the color wheel. The color wheel helps if you're really lost, but it's not the be all and end all. So how do you figure out what the perfect colors are? Well, as Walter says, what's your gut say?
Or I'll take a look at his shirt. It's all different colors.
That's right.
My shirt's all different colors. It seems to work.
And yeah, we're coordinated, but not matchy-matchy. Because some of the blues in your shirt are in the blues of my shirt, and some of the yellows are there too. But if you think about it, think of this as nature. Nature has all kinds of colors in it, and they always work together. Always. Okay? So we are part of nature. We've evolved to the state we're at now, or some may call it de-evolution. But inside of us all, we have a reaction to certain colors. I gravitate towards blues. Always have. Blue's my favorite color.
I like blues too.
But other people gravitate to greens or to reds. So how do you pick colors for a quilt? The first thing you do is, what color do you gravitate towards? And use that as your basis. That becomes your primary color, your main color, put it that way. Then from there, you start to add and subtract. You just throw other fabrics down on it or other things together and say, okay, yeah, I like the way that looks. Or, well, no, because your gut will tell you. If you look at something together and you go, okay, you know that that's not for you. But you know what I'm talking about. Trust your gut. However, if you want extra reinforcement, look around your house. You have unconsciously placed things in your house that you like, the color choices you made when you put those there. You did it unconsciously, probably. Some things maybe not, but a lot of things you probably did. What colors are there? There's your whole spectrum. So it's all around you. The color is all around you. Don't be afraid to use it. But here's why people, I think, get afraid, because I've heard this a lot of times. Well, what if I make the wrong choice? Can you? Can you really make the wrong choice if you're going with what your gut says?
Or if you're going with something you like, why would it be a wrong choice?
Now, maybe what these people are really saying is, well, I'm afraid that somebody else will think it's the wrong choice. You don't worry about somebody else. We all have different tastes. You know, a popular color combination right now is to put lime green with purple. Now, just saying lime green and purple without seeing it, I'm going, ooh. But then very recently, I think it was one Stephanie's creations, she put those two colors together. And I went, I have never done that. I have never used those two colors together. I think it looks fantastic. So the quilt I was working at that time, I added a little bit of that in it, and I really like it. It's a bold choice, but I like it. Somebody else though might come along and go, well, I don't really, not my cup of tea. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's not your quilt.
It's like I remember a class that you were taking. I think it was called a modern quilt, and the sample quilt was all done in pastels, pastel pinks and purples and blues, and between Steve and I, neither one of us really like
We like
pastel
bold
colors. We like bright colors or dark colors or whatever. And so Steve remade the quilt into using K-facet fabric.
And you know what K-facet fabrics
and
are like?
it's
They're
very
bold.
it's very bold colors. And even the instructor who made the original sample quilt, she didn't like it.
No, she started being going, are you sure you want to use those fabrics for this? And I went, yep. I said, because I like K-facet. Well, she was looking at the various stages, and at first she wasn't really convinced. But then she said to me after it was all done and laid out and everything, she's, I didn't think any of that was going to work. I thought you'd be really not happy with it. But she says, now that I see it all together like that, she says, yeah, I think that really works well together. But you see, I went with my gut when I did that. So, and it didn't matter. Even if she turned around and said, well, all right, I know you like it. It's still not my cup of tea. It's okay. It's not your quilt. It's my quilt. It makes me happy. And that's, I think, what people need to look at. You're not making a quilt to impress other people. If you are, you shouldn't be quilting. You really shouldn't be quilting, because you're not going to get joy from that. You're putting undue pressure on yourself to create something that the rest of the world's going to fall in love with. Well, are you falling in love with it? Or are you trying to play to other people's tastes and interests? So personally, nah, I don't want to do that. That doesn't make it fun. And what's the worst thing that can happen after you put it all together? If you really don't like it, donate it to a charity. But I've done scrap quilts where I've just pulled scraps, and people have trouble with this. Many people said, oh, I'd love to do a scrappy quilt, but I need to coordinate it. Well, it's not a scrappy quilt then. It's matchy-matchy what you're doing. No, the whole idea of a scrap quilt is for to use up your scraps and to break out of the mold of everything having to be perfect. Just throw it together. Just it's freeing, very free. If you've never done a scrap quilt like that, you should try it someday. And guess what? Some of my favorite quilts that I've made were all scrappy.
All different colors.
They were all different colors, different pieces. Some of them were like made up with orphan blocks, and I just made them fit together. I didn't try for symmetry, and I'm very good at not getting things symmetrical, as you well know. Yeah, not necessarily because I wasn't trying. But yeah, you just throw caution to the wind, and it'll work. It will work. Okay, so those are things that we want to talk about in terms of like colors and quilting and that. But there's some other things we want to talk a little bit about. Okay, you've heard us talk about this one before. We're still trying to understand it. People who go out, they buy themselves a brand new piece of equipment, a new sewing machine, an embroidery machine, something like that, and they never take it out of the box. And 2 years later, it's still sitting in the box. We just heard a story recently, like,
Yeah, it was actually a lady that had bought a combo machine years ago, and which is like embroidery and sewing in one machine. And she sold her machine. She had purchased a new machine. She sold her old machine to either a friend or someone else. And the friend tried to use the embroidery. This new person tried to use the embroidery unit, and it didn't work. And the response I got from the lady that sold it said, "Well, it should work because I've never used it. In all the years that she had this machine, she never used it, the embroidery unit, so it should be like new, right?" And I said to her, "It's probably seized inside because it's never used."
because oil does dry up.
And she goes, "Why? I've never used it. It should be like new." Well, it may be like new, but it's probably rusted, not rusted, but it's probably seized and the oil dried up inside. And because the parts have never moved, they may not move. And if you buy something like a machine and leave it in a box for a couple of years and then pull it out and try and use it, there chances are you may need to get it serviced because it may have seized up on you.
And even when it gets serviced, it may not work as well as if you've taken it out of the box the very first day you got it and you put it through its paces
Right.
with it. Because who knows? There could be a manufacturer's defect in
In
it too.
fact, I bought an embroidery machine and it wasn't working right, right out of the box, brand
Yep.
new. And I kept trying to, I thought I had a setting wrong or something, and I kept trying it. So I finally took it into the store, and sure enough, there was a manufacturer's defect.
Yeah. And I've heard that from other people. One person I know, she bought herself a new Janome sewing machine, and she went to wind a bobbin, and the bobbin winder wouldn't work. Now, at first you say, well, wait, it's possibly user error here, sure, but she's used the same type of bobbin winder on other machines she's had. So no, she took it back to the store, and yep, the company, the manufacturer, had forgot to hook up that mechanism to it. I mean, it wasn't a major problem, but they were able to fix it, I think, on the spot without too much of a difficulty. But it's things like that. If she had left that in the box for 2, 3 years or something like that, then went to use it, well, she might have had to have paid to have something that she did not wreck, but it may not still be covered under the warranty, or possibly the place she takes it will think, well, no, you broke it because you've had this machine for 3 years. So there you go. But what I'm trying to understand is why people do that. I err on the other end. I can't wait to get at it. So, yeah, there's a manual. Toss that aside. I'll look at that later. Let's get right in there and get dirty with it. And that's maybe not the best thing to do either, but that's what I do.
Or like, I mean, I can understand people buying something and then because they're working, leave it in the box for a couple of weeks, but and then get
I don't
to it.
understand that.
But to leave it in a box for a year and a half.
So why did they do that? Well, one of the theories I have is they have a fear of box openings, meaning that if it stays in the box and I don't open it, then there aren't any problems with it. It's perfect. But if it comes out of that box and I start using it and something goes wrong with it, then I'm going to have to deal with that problem. But as long as it's in the box, I can say, yeah, I have a new piece of equipment here and it's working perfectly. That's delusional,
Yeah.
but I think some
I
people
have a
do.
brand new sewing machine.
Yeah,
Don't you tell that to other people? Yeah, I have a brand new embroidery machine.
it's
And
not.
if you don't say that it's in the box, then you can tell people you have a brand new
Yeah,
sewing machine.
and it's not like people who collect action figures and have and never open up the package, because those things increase in value if they're in the
Yeah,
original packaging.
unless you're a
Sewing
sewing
machines don't.
machine collector.
Yeah, well, even a sewing machine collector, that probably doesn't change the value of it
No.
uh, at all. The other thing is, I think there might be a fear that they have to learn something new.
But then why did you buy the product in the first place?
FOMO, fear of missing out. Your friend got one, they're loving it the whole bit. You've seen it advertised, you've seen YouTubes and
You've
all this
seen
kind of stuff.
you've seen people yeah, you've seen YouTubes, you've seen people creating wonderful things
Yep.
on it on YouTube and like you and they decide to, oh, I want to get that too.
Yeah. But then they realize, and you hear this one all the time. Well, I just haven't had time yet. I want to have a time when I can sit down and read the manual and try the different things. Guess what? That time never comes because nobody ever has enough time. If you're one of those kind of people that says that blame it on time, I'll do this when I have more time. No, 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 because you're filling up your time already with other things. It's an excuse. In my opinion, that's an excuse. We can always make excuses for why we don't want to do something. And I think that's what it is for people who do not take the things out of the box. And geez, we're not talking about something that cost you $1.99 at the dollar store. We're talking about things that cost thousands of dollars. So some people have even gotten them as gifts. Their husband surprised them at Christmas time, bought them a brand new embroidery machine. I haven't taken it out of the box yet. What was that, past Christmas? No, he got that in about 2016. Well, if I was this person's husband or whoever gave it to him, I'd be a little pissed off at them because they could have bought them a box of chocolates and kept the rest of the money for themselves than doing something like that. That's kind of an insult, I think. So, anyways, how do you get around this syndrome? You just do. You get it home, you open the box, you pull it out, you plug it in, and at least you've done something. And put it in a place where you're going to see it every 2 seconds and go, I really need to get on with this kind of thing. Call a friend. That might be a good thing over fear. If your friend has a similar machine or has one of these machines, get together with them and say, look, I've got this machine. Would you mind coming over? We'll drink some wine. We'll play with the machine. You might want to play with the machine a little before you get too much of the wine into you, because then there's something called user error on that. So that also takes me to when people do have problems with their equipment. Um, they can't describe the problem. I heard recently someone was having a problem with their sewing machine. I had the same sewing machine. Or no, it was an embroidery machine. And it's in the shop now. And they haven't had it very long. And I said, well, what happened? Well, it went plunk plunk. Wow. Okay. I know exactly what your problem is. No. So it went kerplunk kerplunk. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, it just went kerplunk kerplunk and then went thud. Still not a help. Not a help. So what's it not doing? Well, it's not doing what it should do. Well, what is it you're trying? And I hear this all the time. People cannot describe the problem. I'm not sure if they think in the back of their mind unconsciously that if they're able to describe the problem, then someone's going to say to them, "Oh, that's your fault. That's user error. That has nothing to do with the machine." And they don't want to have that thrown in their face, like, "Not my fault. Wasn't me." Okay, kind of a thing. But then they go into a place to get it repaired or whatever, or help with it, and they can't describe the problem. And they expect the other person, the expert on the other end, the store owner or the service person or whatever, to read their mind. And that's not going to happen. Um, And some people just don't want to believe that maybe the problem isn't the machine, but it's been something they've been doing. There was that lady at that came in to see Shirley at Ultimate
Yeah,
Sewing.
there was a lady that was described to me one time that she had purchased a brand new sewing machine and they had shown her how to use it, how to thread it, and everything else. And then she took it home, and all of a sudden she said it doesn't work anymore. Like she can't get it to sew properly or something like that. So she took it back in, and they had her rethread it in front of them. And then they realized that she wasn't threading it properly, right? So it was causing a problem when she was trying to stitch. So they explained the problem to her, showed her how to thread it again, and she'd take it home and have a problem again with it. When they bring it back in again, they found out that she still had it had threaded it again incorrectly. Well, they had shown her several times on how to rethread it, but each time she's complaining that there's a problem with the machine. But in actual fact, she's rethreading it wrong. She's threading it wrong, and she won't learn how to thread it properly, and kept coming back and saying that the machine is not working.
See, there's a deeper issue in that particular case, I think, with that individual, on a mental capacity kind of thing. But that's the kind of thing people don't want to take ownership for the problems they might be having. The first thing I do when something screws up on one of my machines, I look at it and say, okay, what did I do wrong? I've done something. And sometimes, like something like threading a machine, for example, although you've done it 100 times before, it's muscle memory. When you're threading your machine, you're probably not even thinking about it. Your hands just automatically do it. But maybe one time, something slipped out and you didn't notice it. And then you think there's a problem with your machine. No, retrace your steps. Go back to the beginning, redo it, and this time be very conscious of the action you are taking, because that might be all that's wrong with it. But the other
Sometimes people don't know how to ask a question either. Like I had another lady ask me, "Where do you buy pre-wound bobbins?" And so I told her where to go to buy pre-wound bobbins. I didn't know why she was asking me. Well, as it turns out, what it was why she was asking me was for some reason she couldn't figure out how to wind a bobbin on her own machine, even after reading the manual. If somebody else that had the same machine went over to her place and showed her how to do it, and it was working fine, but she was getting frustrated with winding bobbins. So instead of saying to me, "Oh, I'm having trouble winding my bobbins, I'd like to maybe try pre-wound bobbins," right? No, she came out and blurted to me that she needed pre-wound bobbins. Well, that isn't really her problem.
No. So, so that's avoidance. That says, well, I can't do this, so I'm going to find an easier way for it. So that's avoidance. I mean, I use pre-wound bobbins too, but only because I just don't. I know how to wind a bobbin, but I use them because they're very convenient. They're already pre-wound for me. I just drop them in. I don't have to worry about having a whole bunch of them already wound up and ready to go. But I mean, I can still do it if I have to. But what Walter was just talking about, that's just pure avoidance. But the thing is too, when you go in to talk about a problem with your machine, you need to go in with as much information as you can give. Like, first of all, write down what you have tried already, what it's doing, describe it, and if you can, take with the modern day and age of cell phones, it's very easy to make a quickie little video on your cell phone and take it in and show it to the people that are going to help you out with this, or take some pictures, because that's really going to help the understanding. Some people don't have necessarily the vocabulary for describing, kerplunk, kerplunk, thunk. But if you have a picture or a little video, it might be clearer for the people that are trying to help you out.
Not only that, it might help if you have the needle that you were using in the machine, and the thread that you were using,
and the fabric you were sewing on too, right. Because if you walk into the store with your machine in your hand, you don't have any of those things that you were using with it. If the store turns around, puts in their own stuff, and it works fine for them, does that solve your problem? Your problem may not have been the machine. Your problem might be like some machines don't like certain threads.
Yeah, like one time we went into a store and it turned out the problem with the machine was that the woman had purchased very cheap thread at the dollar store, and it was clogging. It wasn't running through the machine properly, and that was basically the problem.
But if she wasn't telling the service people this up front about it, or just assumed that it didn't really matter, no. Even if you think it may not be that problem, I think you should suggest it to the help, because it could be. For example, what happened with me with Lucy very recently. I put in variegated thread. I hadn't used variegated thread before on it. I spent 2 days trying to get Lucy to cooperate with that variegated thread, and I could not figure out what the problem was. I tried all kinds of things. I took the spool of thread. Actually, Walter said, maybe when we go down and see Tracy, my APQS dealer, with this, maybe you should take that spool of thread in with you. Now, in my mind, I thought, it can't be the thread, because thread, it can't be this spool of thread, because it just can't be. It's a brand name, the whole bit. Within 2 minutes, Tracy looked at the spool of thread and says, there's something wrong with that spool of thread. And she pointed out something to me. I didn't notice this before. It wasn't that obvious, but she's a trained eye, lots of experience. She says, let me give you another spool of that same thread. You take it home, you try it, and let me know how it works out. It's a spool of thread. It was wound incorrectly at the manufacturer, and it was causing it to tug and break all the time. When I put that new spool of thread on, which was exactly the same brand, exactly the same color, the whole bit, I had no problem with it whatsoever. But if I hadn't taken that spool of thread in with me, then we would have been hunting in the dark. So yeah, take some things with you that you're using at the time you're having the problem.
Or use another spool of thread,
or try something else, yeah, with it. So, all right, the other thing too here is, of course, and you've heard us harp on this, maintaining your equipment. Simple things like oiling your machines, cleaning your machines on a regular basis. How many times I know that repairmen have, if someone's come in, my machine won't do this, won't do that. The repair guy opens it up and he's just about consumed by the fuzz balls that come out of it. You wouldn't think a little fuzzy ball or even a few little strands of thread could throw your machine off. Well, guess what? It does. I've had a problem with my sewing machine. I keep my sewing machines pristine. I clean them after every major job, sometimes in the middle of a job, depending on how linty things might get. But I have had times where I've cleaned the machine a little bit and my thread's breaking for some reason. And I've used the same thread 1,000 times. I change the needle, still breaking it. Then I decide, wait, let's open up the bobbin case and look in. In a spot that was not obvious, there was a little piece of thread about that long just caught up underneath the lip in there. And for some reason, that was causing a problem. I took a pair of tweezers, I pulled that out, re-threaded it, no problem. Something as minor, something you would think in your mind going, this possibly could not do this. Yeah.
I've had a similar problem where I pulled out the bobbin case. There's a little piece of thread underneath it or something like that when it's not sewing properly. I've had a problem where it doesn't seem to be sewing properly, and all I have to do is rethread the machine and it works okay. Stuff like that. There's a small oiling point underneath the bobbin case in the Janome machines that has, you look at the circle, there's a little fuzzy ball area in the middle underneath the bobbin case, and that's an oiling point where you just put a drop of oil. And there are people that see that little fuzzy point and they think they should pull that out.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. That's the wick. That's what gets the oil down into the machine. That happens a lot. I almost did it. I almost did it on my first major machine. I saw this in there and I thought, oh, oh, there's some lint in there or something. I should take that out. But I didn't. I don't know what stopped me. I think I went to the manual or something, or I watched a YouTube video and saw, well, under no circumstances take that out. And I'm glad that I saw that because I was going to do it too. So on this whole thing about questions as well, a lot of people are very impatient. They want quick answers and quick solutions. And sometimes there are, but many times there aren't. And this is what I hear a lot, especially for machine embroidery. Oh, someone says, I just got an embroidery machine. I see that you've got some videos about your embroidery machine. So I was just wondering, and they'll ask me a question that is a course. And what they want is a 2-minute answer, 50 words or less, telling them exactly how to do, like, oh, in the hoop machine embroidery, an in the hoop project or applique or something like that. No, you need to take a course. You need to study things on YouTube for that. I cannot give you an answer. Nobody can give you an answer and explain it to you in 1 minute. But a lot of people, that's what they want. And when you tell them, well, how much time do you have? Oh, well, no, I thought there'd be a simple answer.
Or like the question, like, how do I know what stabilizer to use?
Like, again, these are people looking for a formula, okay, for something that's really kind of an art. Yeah, there are guidelines for things like for stabilizers. There's all kinds of guidelines. When you're doing this, use this stabilizer. When you're doing this and that. But what those guidelines don't tell you, and in fact, what some manufacturers definitely don't tell you, is they make it sound like, oh yeah, when you're doing some machine embroidery, you just need a single piece of stabilizer. No, if you're doing one that only has a couple of hundred stitches, probably get away with that. But most of the time you have to double up, triple up. Even on a rare occasion, you might have to use 4 sheets of stabilizer. Depends on how complicated the embroidery pattern is. But that's not something that someone can answer just in 30 seconds. You just got my 30-second answer to that. But there's more to it. Like, how do you know when you need more stabilizer? What happens if this doesn't work with that? And that's, you have to study it. And
some of it comes with experience too. So,
and what pisses me off about people who ask those kind of questions, I don't mind questions. I don't mind helping. But help yourself first. Do some research. There is no excuse for anybody in this day and age, in the 21st century. We all have computers. Everybody has access to the internet and to YouTube. Look it up. Look it up. Okay? And then after you've done a reasonable amount of research, you can now fine tune your question and get a much more exacting answer or suggestions than before. If you just like, oh, well, I don't have time to look that up. Well, what makes you think the person you're asking the question has time to look it up for you? Unless you're paying them. Okay. And the other thing too is people who ask a question, but they don't like your answer. I was in the Ultimate Sewing one day, and a lady had come in and she asked Shirley, the owner of the store, who was a seamstress for most of her life. She knows what she's doing with sewing machines. She is a qualified, not only salesperson for Janome, but she can fix them too. She's taken the technical courses. There's no flies on this lady. She knows what she's talking about. This other lady came in, I can't remember the question. And so Shirley very patiently explained to her the answer. And this woman says, well, no, that's not right. And you could see Shirley get a little red in the face. What do you mean that's not right? You just asked me the question. If you knew the answer to it and the right answer to it, why are you bothering asking me the question? Shirley didn't say that, but I'm sure that went through her head. Certainly went through my head when this, and I thought, and I've met other people like that. They have this question.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. That's what they'll tell you. You're wrong. Well, if you know, why are you asking the question? That is,
when you ask a question to somebody that's very knowledgeable about a subject like sewing machines or something like that, and you kind of expect an honest answer. And if you get an honest answer, or a reason why something's not working or something like that, then you should be able to, you should take that answer and accept it. But
the people who don't, who say you're wrong or whatever, they're looking for a specific answer. They're not looking for the right answer. They're looking for you to confirm for them what they think they already know. And when you don't give them that confirmation, they immediately put up their defense mechanism and say, well, no, you're calling me wrong. Anyway, those kind of people are impossible to deal with. As if you work in retail, I know that from working in retail before. You always have the know-it-alls who, it's almost like a test. They want to see if you know your stuff, or there's something sadistic about those people because they want to be superior over you. Well, that's really just kind of a self-defeating attitude, I think, when they do that. Like, why ask the question then? There's something else going on there. They're weird. They're just weird. And then there's those people, they don't want to admit that they may have made a mistake. User error. I've heard many people say, yeah, I went in there and I told them I was having this problem. They said I was doing something wrong. Okay, it is possible, depending on who the person is you're dealing with. There are some people in the service industry that, they always say it's user error. Is it plugged in? Kind of a thing. Turn it on and turn it off, and then turn it on again. That kind of answer. Those are usually people who don't want to deal with you. They don't want to help you. You're a pain in the butt. You're wrecking their schedule for the day, or they don't know what they're talking about anyways, and they don't want to admit it.
a lot of times, a good place would tell you, try and answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
And if the question is a bit ambiguous, or you don't, or they don't quite, they know, like, I mean, usually a shop owner knows that it could be any one of a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And they may say, well, bring your machine in and we'll check it out.
Yeah. And now you see, this is where some people get really uptight. They don't bring in their machine they're having a problem with. They just come in and want to answer because they're afraid they're going to get billed for it. They don't want to spend the money having somebody actually fix their machines because they have an attitude that these places are all in it to make money and they're going to rip you off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another problem. Is a lot of people are unwilling to get their machine serviced because if they're having a problem with it, they think that, well, no, I can clean it out myself, I can oil it myself, I can do this and that to it myself. It must be operating wrong. It's the machine's fault or something like that. And yeah, it could be your machine has gotten a little out of alignment or something like that, and you don't want to accept that. But sometimes you need to bring it in and let a professional look at it. And yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit of money.
But think about it. You have a car. Unless you know how to change the oil yourself or know how to do a brake job on your car or wheel alignment or engine tune-ups or something like that, you have to take that car in and have it serviced. You know that when you buy a car that you are going to have to take it in on some sort of regular schedule to have it serviced by professionals. And yes, we've all been screwed over by car dealerships and places that service vehicles. We know that. But if you don't know how to do it yourself, then you are to a certain degree left to their whims. And I would say if you get burned by one, you go to a different one next time. And I think the same thing can be applied to wherever you bought your sewing machine. A reputable place will not dismiss you by saying user error. What they'll do is they'll go down a checklist and go, okay, just bear with me. I'm sure you've already tried some of these things before, but I just wanted to hone in on the problem. That's how they should start the conversation. So they're not putting you on the defensive and making you feel like you're being accused of doing something wrong. What they're trying to do is a diagnostic. Say, did you try this? And what happened when you tried this? And then did you do that? They're trying to diagnose the problem to get to the heart of it. But if they just turn around and say to you, well, you must have done something wrong as their first answer, I'd be leaving that store very quickly and finding a new dealer somewhere. But again, that goes back to what we said about general keeping your machine clean and having it checked out. You know, if you're a heavy sewer, in fact, my machines need to go in. It's time for their annual checkup. Have them all looked over, professionally cleaned in those spots I can't get at, and all they check my timing to make sure everything's right. Yes, it's going to cost me. It's going to cost me 100 and some odd dollars, but it's an investment. I mean, I dropped $7,000 on the machine once a year for 150 bucks. I think it's worth it to avoid major problems in the future.
And also with you use your machine daily. So,
yeah, every day.
So it's I mean, you only use your machine once in a while. Maybe you don't need to get it serviced as often.
However, if you only use your machine once in a while, you still need to oil it. You still need to clean it.
Yeah, you do.
And you need to make sure it's, you should use it a little bit more often. Let it run for a little bit on its own without anything in it, like kind of a thing. Just making sure it's not seizing up, because they will seize up. Like, don't be your own worst enemy. Guard it. I mean, do you do regular maintenance on your house? Well, some people might not.
Some people might not. Some people don't get their cars maintained either. So
that's true. But, well, some of us don't drive our cars. But my car does get out of the garage once every month or something to make sure it's still running okay and going, because, yeah. All right. So, yeah, I think that's about, I had a few other things on here, but we'll save those for another day, because they don't pertain so much to sewing and that. They're just piss me off things in general. So we won't get into those right now, because this has been a long session of us ranting away on what's going on. But I hope maybe you got something from that. If anything, you can probably relate to some of the things we've said, either on a personal level or from things you have observed. So that's this edition of So Chatty. Again, if you have any suggestions for future topics that you'd like us to explore on So Chatty, by all means, drop them in the comments below or send them directly to me as an email, and we'll see what we can do. So in the meantime, have a great weekend. Weather here's looking really good, which is nice, and hope it's good wherever you are too. So we're going to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Walter.
goodbye.